The morning sun beat down on the dusty training ground at Camp Pendleton as Marine recruits lined up for their weekly marksmanship test. Among them stood Sarah Chen, a 22-year-old woman who had joined the Marines 6 months earlier. She was smaller than most of her fellow recruits, standing at just 5'4", but her steady hands and calm demeanor had already caught the attention of several instructors. The shooting range was buzzing with activity. Drill Sergeant Martinez walked between the recruits, his boots crunching on the gravel as he inspected their positions. The standard M16 rifles felt heavy in the hands of many new recruits, but Sarah held hers with natural ease. She had grown up on a farm in Montana, where her grandfather had taught her to shoot when she was just 8 years old. As the first group of Marines took their positions, Sarah watched quietly from the side. The targets were set at 300 yards, a standard distance for basic marksmanship training. One by one, the Marines fired their rounds. Some hit the target, others missed completely. The sound of gunfire echoed across the range, followed by the instructors' voices calling out scores. When Sarah's turn came, she approached the firing line with confidence. She had been practicing for weeks and her scores had been consistently improving, but today felt different. As she settled into position, everything around her seemed to fade away. The noise of other shooters, the heat of the California sun, even the pressure of being watched by her instructors, it all disappeared. She controlled her breathing, just like her grandfather had taught her. In through the nose, hold for 3 seconds, then slowly out through the mouth. Her finger found the trigger, and she applied steady pressure. The rifle fired, and through her scope she watched the bullet strike the center of the target. Perfect hit. Again and again, Sarah fired. Each shot was precise, each bullet finding its mark exactly where she intended. The other recruits began to notice. Even Sergeant Martinez stopped his usual pacing to watch this quiet woman who seemed to make shooting look effortless. When the smoke cleared and the targets were checked, Sarah had achieved something remarkable. Every single shot had hit the bullseye, not just close to the center, but dead center. It was the kind of accuracy that even experienced Marines rarely achieved. Word of Sarah's performance spread quickly through the base. By evening, officers from different units were asking about the recruit who had shot a perfect score. Some were skeptical, thinking it might have been luck. Others recognized that they might have discovered something special. That night, as Sarah cleaned her rifle in the barracks, she had no idea that her life was about to change dramatically. Her fellow recruits looked at her with a mixture of respect and curiosity. She had always been quiet and focused, but now they realized there was something extraordinary about her abilities. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor to Sarah's training unit. Colonel James Harrison, a tall man with graying hair and sharp eyes, had come to see the recruit everyone was talking about. He had served 3 tours in Afghanistan and had worked closely with some of the military's best snipers. He knew talent when he saw it. Colonel Harrison watched Sarah during her regular training exercises. He noticed how she moved with purpose, how she observed everything around her, and how she remained calm under pressure. These were qualities that couldn't be taught easily. They were natural instincts that made the difference between a good soldier and an exceptional one. As the training session ended, Colonel Harrison approached Sarah. His presence made other recruits step back respectfully. Sarah stood at attention, unsure why such a high-ranking officer wanted to speak with her. The conversation that followed would set Sarah on a path she had never imagined. Colonel Harrison explained that the Marine Corps had a special program for recruits who showed exceptional marksmanship skills. It was challenging, demanding, and not everyone who entered the program succeeded. But for those who did, it opened doors to serving in some of the most critical missions the military undertook. Sarah listened carefully as the colonel described the opportunities and responsibilities that came with advanced sniper training. She thought about her grandfather, who had served in Vietnam and had always told her that the military needed people who could think clearly under pressure. She thought about her reasons for joining the Marines in the first place, to serve her country and to challenge herself in ways civilian life never could. When Colonel Harrison finished speaking, he asked Sarah a simple question that would echo in her mind for years to come. "Are you ready to take your skills to the next level?" Sarah's answer was immediate and confident. She was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. That evening, Sarah called her family to share the news. Her grandfather's voice cracked with pride when she told him about the opportunity. Her parents were worried but supportive, knowing that their daughter had always been determined to excel at whatever she set her mind to. As Sarah prepared for sleep that night, she reflected on how quickly things could change. Just days ago, she was another recruit going through basic training. Now she was being invited to join an elite program that could define her entire military career. The journey ahead would test every skill she possessed and push her beyond limits she didn't even know existed. 3 weeks later, Sarah found herself at a completely different facility. The Marine Scout Sniper School was located in a remote area of Quantico, Virginia, surrounded by dense forests and rolling hills that provided the perfect environment for advanced training. The buildings were older and more weathered than the modern facilities at Camp Pendleton, but there was an air of serious purpose that made the place feel almost sacred. Sarah was one of only 12 recruits selected for this intensive program. As she looked around at her fellow trainees, she realized she was the only woman in the group. The other 11 were all men, most of them several years older and with more military experience. Some had already served in combat zones, while others had distinguished themselves in various Marine Corps specialties. The first person to greet the new arrivals was Gunnery Sergeant Mike Torres, a lean man in his early 40s with weathered hands and eyes that seemed to see everything. He had spent 15 years as a Marine sniper and had completed multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. His reputation was legendary among Marine snipers, and his training methods were known to be both effective and unforgiving. Gunny Torres gathered the recruits in a simple classroom with concrete walls and fluorescent lighting. Maps of various terrains covered the walls, and rifles of different types were displayed in locked cases. The atmosphere was serious and focused, very different from the loud, energetic environment of basic training. The gunny's first words set the tone for everything that would follow. Forget everything you think you know about shooting. What you learned in basic training was just the beginning. Here we're going to teach you to become a weapon system. You'll learn to think like your target, to become invisible when you need to be, and to make shots that others would consider impossible. The training began immediately. Unlike basic training, which focused on following orders and building physical fitness, Sniper School was about developing independent thinking and problem-solving skills. Sarah and her fellow recruits learned about ballistics, weather conditions, and how different factors could affect a bullet's path over long distances. Sarah discovered that accurate shooting was only a small part of what snipers actually did. They spent hours learning about camouflage and concealment, studying how to move through different types of terrain without being detected. They practiced crawling for miles through mud, leaves, and thorny underbrush, all while carrying heavy equipment and maintaining absolute silence. The mental aspects of the training were just as challenging as the physical demands. Snipers needed to remain perfectly still for hours at a time, observing targets and gathering intelligence. Sarah learned to control not just her breathing and heart rate, but also her mind. She practiced meditation techniques that helped her maintain focus even when she was tired, hungry, or uncomfortable. One of the most difficult skills to master was range estimation. Sarah had to learn to judge distances accurately without the aid of modern equipment, using only her eyes and basic reference points. This skill was critical, because even the smallest error in distance calculation could cause a shot to miss its target completely. The weapons training at Sniper School was unlike anything Sarah had experienced before. Instead of the standard M16 rifle she had used in basic training, she now worked with the M40A5, a precision rifle specifically designed for long-range shooting. The rifle was heavier and more complex, with a powerful scope that could magnify targets at distances of over 1,000 yards. Sarah's natural shooting ability continued to impress her instructors, but she quickly learned that raw talent was not enough. Every shot required careful calculation and preparation. She had to consider wind speed and direction, air temperature, humidity, and even the rotation of the earth when making extremely long shots. The competition among the recruits was intense but respectful. Everyone understood that they were all working toward the same goal, and that each person's success contributed to the group's overall effectiveness. Sarah found herself forming strong friendships with several of her fellow trainees, particularly with Jake Morrison, a 26-year-old from Texas who had previously served as an infantry Marine. Jake became Sarah's spotter during many training exercises. In sniper teams, the spotter is responsible for observing the target area, calculating environmental factors, and helping the shooter make accurate shots. It's a partnership that requires complete trust and communication. Jake was impressed by Sarah's consistency and calm demeanor, while Sarah appreciated Jake's experience and tactical knowledge. As the weeks progressed, the training became increasingly realistic. The recruits participated in field exercises that simulated actual combat conditions. They learned to operate in different environments, from desert landscapes to urban settings. Each scenario presented unique challenges and required different approaches. One particularly memorable exercise involved a nighttime mission where Sarah and Jake had to reach a designated observation point without being detected by opposing forces. They spent 6 hours crawling through thick forest, covering less than 2 miles while carrying full packs and weapons. When they finally reached their position, they had to remain hidden for another 8 hours while observing and reporting on simulated enemy activities. During this exercise, Sarah demonstrated not only her shooting skills but also her ability to think strategically and work effectively as part of a team. When the opposing forces came dangerously close to discovering their position, Sarah made quick decisions that allowed her and Jake to remain hidden while still completing their mission objectives. The instructors were beginning to take special notice of Sarah's performance. While all the recruits were skilled, Sarah consistently scored at the top of every evaluation. Her shooting accuracy remained extraordinary, but more importantly, she showed the kind of judgment and composure that separated good snipers from exceptional ones. Gunny Torres began giving Sarah additional challenges and responsibilities. He would set up complex scenarios that required her to make difficult decisions under pressure. Each test was designed to push her beyond her comfort zone and prepare her for the realities of actual combat situations. As the training program reached its midpoint, Sarah realized that she had found her calling. The precision, discipline, and mental focus required for sniper work matched perfectly with her personality and natural abilities. She was no longer just a recruit learning new skills. She was becoming a Marine sniper, ready to take on responsibilities that few people ever face. The final phase of sniper training arrived faster than Sarah had expected. After 3 months of intensive preparation, she and her fellow trainees were ready for the ultimate test. The graduation exercise would determine who earned the right to call themselves Marine Scout snipers and who would return to regular infantry units. The test was designed to simulate a real-world mission from start to finish. Each sniper team would receive a briefing about a fictional conflict scenario, then plan and execute a complex operation that included infiltration, reconnaissance, target elimination, and extraction. They would have 72 hours to complete their mission while being hunted by opposing forces. Sarah was paired with Jake Morrison for this final exercise. Over the months of training, they had developed an almost telepathic understanding of each other's movements and thoughts. Jake's experience in infantry combat complemented Sarah's exceptional marksmanship skills perfectly, making them one of the strongest teams in their class. Their mission briefing revealed a challenging scenario. They were tasked with infiltrating a heavily guarded compound, gathering intelligence on enemy movements, and eliminating 2 high-value targets. The compound was located 15 miles from their starting point, across varied terrain that included open fields, dense forest, and a small river. Sarah and Jake spent hours studying maps and satellite photographs of the area. They identified potential routes, backup plans, and extraction points. Every detail mattered because once the exercise began, they would be on their own with limited communication and no possibility of rescue if things went wrong. The mission began at sunset on a cold November evening. Sarah and Jake loaded their packs with everything they would need for 3 days in the field: food, water, ammunition, camouflage materials, and sophisticated observation equipment. Sarah carried her M40A5 rifle, which had become as familiar to her as her own hands after months of training. Moving through the darkness, the 2 Marines demonstrated all the skills they had learned. They traveled in complete silence, communicating only through hand signals and predetermined codes. When they encountered obstacles like streams or open areas, they worked together to find safe passage without leaving traces of their presence. By dawn, they had covered 8 miles and were approaching the outer perimeter of the target area. This was where their training would be put to the ultimate test. Intelligence reports indicated that the compound was defended by experienced military personnel who would be actively searching for Infiltrators. Sarah and Jake found a concealed position on a hillside overlooking the compound. From this vantage point, they could observe the entire facility while remaining hidden in thick undergrowth. They spent the entire first day watching, taking notes on guard patterns, vehicle movements, and the daily routines of people inside the compound. The intelligence gathering phase revealed information that wasn't included in their original briefing. The compound was more heavily defended than expected, with roving patrols that changed their routes unpredictably. Additionally, there were innocent civilians in the area, including workers who appeared to be forced labor rather than willing participants in enemy activities. This discovery forced Sarah and Jake to reconsider their entire approach. As Marines, they were trained to minimize civilian casualties and to distinguish between combatants and non-combatants. They spent hours observing and planning, looking for opportunities to complete their mission without endangering innocent people. On the second night, they moved to a new position closer to the compound. Sarah demonstrated her advanced stalking skills by covering 200 yards of open ground in complete darkness without being detected. She moved so slowly and carefully that it took her 4 hours to reach the new position. But her patience paid off when she arrived unnoticed. From the new location, Sarah had clear sight lines to both target buildings within the compound. She began the careful process of range estimation and environmental calculation that would be necessary for accurate long-distance shots. The targets were over 800 yards away, a distance that required extraordinary precision and skill. Jake served as her spotter, using high-powered optics to observe the target area and provide Sarah with critical information about wind conditions and target movements. Their communication was minimal and conducted in whispers so quiet they could barely hear each other, but their teamwork was flawless. The opportunity they had been waiting for came on the morning of the third day. The two simulated high-value targets appeared together at a window in the main building, presenting Sarah with a challenging but achievable shot. She had only seconds to act before they would move away and possibly not appear again. Sarah controlled her breathing and settled into her shooting position. Everything she had learned over the past months came together in this single moment. She calculated the distance, adjusted for wind drift, and accounted for the slight upward angle of her shot. Her finger found the trigger and she applied steady pressure just as her grandfather had taught her years ago on their Montana farm. The shot was perfect. Through her scope, Sarah watched the simulated target react exactly as it should when hit by a precision rifle round. Immediately, she shifted her aim to the second target, who had begun to move away from the window. This shot was more difficult because the target was moving, but Sarah's training had prepared her for exactly this situation. Her second shot was equally accurate. Both targets had been successfully eliminated without any harm to the civilians in the compound. Jake confirmed the hits through his spotting scope, and they immediately began their extraction procedure. The escape from the target area was just as challenging as the infiltration had been. Alert guards were now searching for the source of the shots, and Sarah and Jake had to move quickly, while still maintaining their concealment. They used every technique they had learned, including creating false trails and using natural terrain features to mask their movement. 36 hours later, they reached their designated extraction point, having successfully completed one of the most challenging exercises in Marine sniper training. When the instructors arrived to debrief them, both Sarah and Jake were exhausted but proud of their performance. Gunny Torres reviewed their mission report with particular attention to Sarah's shooting performance. Both shots had been fired at distances exceeding 800 yards under difficult conditions, and both had achieved perfect accuracy. Combined with their flawless infiltration and extraction, it was one of the best performances he had seen in his years as an instructor. The graduation ceremony took place the following week. Of the 12 Marines who had started the program, only 8 successfully completed all requirements. Sarah stood with her fellow graduates as they received their Scout Sniper badges, small pieces of metal that represented months of the most demanding training the Marine Corps offered. As Sarah pinned the badge to her uniform, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this moment. From a farm girl in Montana to a certified Marine Scout sniper, she had discovered capabilities within herself that she never knew existed. But she also understood that this graduation was not an ending. It was the beginning of a new chapter in her service to her country. 6 months after graduation from sniper school, Sarah received orders that would change her life forever. She was being deployed to Afghanistan as part of a Marine Expeditionary Unit, tasked with conducting special operations in one of the most dangerous regions of the country. The area had seen increased Taliban activity, and intelligence reports indicated that enemy snipers were targeting American forces with growing effectiveness. Sarah's deployment began with a long flight from California to Kandahar Airfield, followed by a helicopter transport to Forward Operating Base Chapman, a small outpost located in the mountains of eastern Afghanistan. The base was surrounded by rocky hills and sparse vegetation, providing excellent vantage points for both friendly and enemy snipers. Upon arrival, Sarah was assigned to Scout Sniper Team Alpha, led by Staff Sergeant David Kim, a Korean-American Marine who had completed 4 previous deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. Kim was known for his tactical expertise and his ability to keep his Marines safe in extremely dangerous situations. The team also included Corporal Mike Rodriguez as the assistant team leader and Lance Corporal Tommy Wilson as communications specialist. The base commander, Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Wells, briefed Sarah's team on their mission priorities. Enemy snipers had been targeting American patrols and supply convoys with increasing frequency, causing significant casualties and disrupting operations throughout the region. The Marine sniper teams were tasked with identifying and eliminating these threats while providing overwatch for friendly forces. Sarah's first combat mission came just 3 days after her arrival. Intelligence reports indicated that enemy snipers were operating from a series of caves in the mountains, overlooking a crucial supply route. If these snipers were not eliminated, they could continue to attack American convoys and potentially cut off supplies to several remote outposts. The mission required Sarah's team to establish an observation post on a mountainside across from the suspected enemy positions. They would need to remain hidden for up to 48 hours while observing enemy activities and waiting for opportunities to engage hostile snipers. It was exactly the type of challenging, high-stakes mission that Sarah had trained for. But experiencing it in actual combat was entirely different from any training exercise. The team departed the base before dawn, traveling in an armored vehicle for the first 10 miles before continuing on foot through treacherous mountain terrain. Sarah carried her M40A5 rifle along with additional equipment, including night vision devices, range-finding equipment, and enough food and water for 2 days in the field. Establishing their observation post required 4 hours of careful movement through rocky terrain while avoiding detection by enemy forces. Staff Sergeant Kim selected a position that provided excellent visibility of the suspected sniper locations while offering multiple escape routes if they were discovered. The position was uncomfortable and exposed to the elements, but it was tactically sound. Sarah spent her first day in combat doing what snipers do most of the time, watching and waiting. Through her rifle scope and spotting equipment, she observed the mountainside across from their position, looking for any signs of enemy activity. The work required intense concentration and patience, skills that her training had developed but that took on new meaning when lives were at stake. Late in the afternoon of the first day, Sarah spotted movement in one of the cave entrances across the valley. Using her spotting scope, she could see what appeared to be a rifle barrel protruding from the shadows. She quietly alerted Staff Sergeant Kim, who confirmed her observation and began calculating range and environmental factors for a potential shot. The target was approximately 200 yards away, an extremely long distance even for an experienced sniper. Sarah would need to account for significant bullet drop, wind drift, and the effects of the thin mountain air on her bullet's trajectory. These calculations required both mathematical precision and intuitive understanding of ballistics that could only come from extensive training and experience. As the team observed the enemy position, they witnessed the hostile sniper preparing to engage an American patrol that was moving through the valley below. Sarah realized that she had only minutes to act before American Marines would come under fire from a concealed enemy position. The pressure was enormous, but her training had prepared her for exactly this moment. Staff Sergeant Kim served as her spotter, providing wind readings and confirming range estimates while Sarah prepared for what would be her first shot, fired in combat. Everything she had learned during months of training seemed to compress into a few critical seconds as she settled into her firing position and controlled her breathing. The shot Sarah fired that day would later be studied by Marine sniper instructors as an example of exceptional marksmanship under combat conditions. Despite the extreme range and challenging environmental factors, her bullet struck the enemy sniper precisely where she had aimed. The threat to the American patrol was eliminated instantly, and several Marines who never knew how close they had come to danger continued their mission safely. Word of Sarah's successful engagement spread quickly through the base. A shot at 200 yards under combat conditions was remarkable by any standard, but what impressed her fellow Marines most was her calm demeanor and professional attitude. She had performed under the ultimate pressure without showing any signs of stress or uncertainty. Over the following weeks, Sarah participated in numerous missions throughout the region. Each operation presented unique challenges and required different tactical approaches. Sometimes she provided overwatch for infantry patrols, using her rifle to eliminate threats before they could engage friendly forces. Other missions involved gathering intelligence on enemy movements and positions. One particularly memorable mission involved supporting a night raid on a Taliban compound suspected of harboring foreign fighters. Sarah's team established positions overlooking the compound and provided precision fire support as Marine infantry units moved in to capture high-value targets. Her ability to distinguish between combatants and civilians in low-light conditions proved invaluable in preventing civilian casualties. As her deployment continued, Sarah's reputation grew among both the Marines she served with and the enemy forces who learned to fear the accuracy of American snipers. Taliban fighters began changing their tactics to avoid exposure to sniper fire, a testament to the effectiveness of Sarah and her fellow Marines. The psychological aspects of combat sniping proved to be just as important as the physical skills. Sarah learned to compartmentalize the emotional impact of her actions while maintaining the empathy and judgment necessary to make split-second decisions about life and death. She was protecting her fellow Marines and innocent civilians, but she also understood the weight of responsibility that came with her role. By the end of her first month in Afghanistan, Sarah had successfully engaged multiple enemy targets and had played a crucial role in several important missions. Her exceptional marksmanship skills, combined with her tactical intelligence and professional demeanor, made her one of the most effective snipers in her unit. However, her greatest challenges and most significant contributions were still to come. 3 months into her deployment, Sarah faced a situation that would test every skill she had developed and push her abilities to their absolute limits. Intelligence reports revealed that a group of highly trained enemy snipers had established positions in a mountainous area overlooking a critical valley where American forces regularly operated. These weren't ordinary Taliban fighters, but foreign specialists who had received advanced training and were equipped with sophisticated weapons. The enemy sniper team had already killed 6 American Marines and wounded 12 others in a series of carefully planned ambushes. Their tactics were professional and deadly, indicating military training that rivaled what American forces received. Traditional counter-sniper operations had failed because the enemy team was extremely mobile and skilled at concealment. Lieutenant Colonel Wells called a special briefing for all sniper teams on the base. The situation had become critical enough that higher command was considering suspending operations in the entire valley, which would severely impact American strategic objectives in the region. The Marine snipers were being asked to solve a problem that conventional forces couldn't handle. Sarah's team was selected to lead the counter-sniper operation. Due to their proven effectiveness and Sarah's exceptional marksmanship record, however, Staff Sergeant Kim had been evacuated 2 days earlier due to a severe illness, leaving the team without their experienced leader. Command decided to give Sarah temporary leadership of the team, making her responsible for planning and executing one of the most challenging missions of the entire deployment, the intelligence. Briefing revealed that the enemy snipers were operating from multiple positions across a 10-square-mile area of mountainous terrain. They had been observed using at least 3 different firing positions and had demonstrated the ability to move between locations without being detected. Their equipment appeared to include high-quality rifles with advanced optics, possibly obtained from foreign sources. Sarah spent 2 days studying maps, satellite imagery, and intelligence reports while developing a plan to locate and eliminate the enemy sniper team. She realized that conventional approaches wouldn't work against such skilled opponents. Instead, she would need to think like they did and anticipate their movements and tactics. Her plan was both simple and audacious. Rather than trying to hunt the enemy snipers directly, Sarah proposed to use herself as bait. She would position her team in a location where they would be visible to the enemy snipers, encouraging them to attempt an attack. When they revealed their positions by shooting, Sarah would be ready to counterattack with precision fire. The plan required split-second timing and absolute confidence in her abilities. Sarah would need to identify the enemy firing position, calculate range and environmental factors, and make an accurate shot faster than her opponents could adjust their aim or change positions. There would be no second chances and no room for error. Sarah selected a ridgeline that provided good visibility of the most likely enemy positions while offering some protection for her team. She positioned Corporal Rodriguez and Lance Corporal Wilson in concealed locations where they could provide backup fire and serve as spotters. The plan called for Sarah to remain exposed just long enough to draw enemy fire, then immediately respond with counter-sniper fire. The operation began at dawn on a clear morning with excellent visibility. Sarah's team moved into position under cover of darkness and established their firing positions before sunrise. As the sun came up, Sarah made herself visible to any enemy observers by moving deliberately along the ridgeline, presenting what appeared to be an easy target for enemy snipers. For 3 hours, nothing happened. Sarah began to wonder if the enemy snipers had moved to a different area, or if they had detected something suspicious about her team's positioning. The psychological pressure of serving as live bait while knowing that highly skilled enemy snipers might be watching her was intense. But Sarah maintained her composure and continued with the plan. The first shot came without warning at 10:30. Sarah heard the distinctive crack of a high-velocity rifle bullet passing close to her head, followed immediately by the sound of the rifle firing from across the valley. In the fraction of a second between hearing the bullet and the rifle report, Sarah identified the enemy firing position and began her response. Moving with speed and precision that amazed her teammates, Sarah dropped into a firing position and acquired the target through her rifle scope. The enemy sniper was approximately 900 yards away, positioned among rocks that provided excellent camouflage. She could see just enough of the enemy position to make an accurate shot, but the target was small and partially concealed. Sarah's first shot struck the enemy sniper before he could fire again or change positions. Through her scope, she could see that her bullet had found its mark precisely where she had aimed. However, intelligence reports had indicated that there were at least 3 enemy snipers, which meant that 2 more threats remained. Almost immediately, a second enemy position opened fire from a different location. This sniper was further away, perhaps 1,100 yards, and was firing from a position that Sarah's team hadn't identified during their reconnaissance. The bullet struck near Lance Corporal Wilson's position, forcing him to take cover and disrupting the team's planned response. Sarah quickly shifted her aim to the new threat, while Corporal Rodriguez provided covering fire with his rifle. The second enemy sniper was located in a small cave entrance that provided excellent protection, but limited his field of fire. Sarah realized that she would need to wait for him to expose himself enough to present a viable target. The tactical situation became a deadly game of patience and precision. Sarah remained motionless in her firing position, rifle aimed at the enemy cave entrance, waiting for the slightest indication that the enemy sniper was preparing to fire again. Meanwhile, she had to remain alert for the third enemy sniper, who hadn't revealed his position yet. 20 minutes passed before the second enemy sniper made his mistake. As he adjusted his position to get a better shot at Sarah's team, he exposed just enough of himself to provide Sarah with a target. The shot was extremely difficult due to the distance and the small target area, but Sarah's months of training and combat experience had prepared her for exactly this moment. Her second successful shot eliminated the second enemy sniper, but Sarah knew that the most dangerous opponent was still out there. The third sniper would be the most experienced and cautious, having watched his teammates be eliminated by Sarah's precise shooting. He would be looking for an opportunity to strike when Sarah's guard was down. The final confrontation came as Sarah was preparing to change positions. The third enemy sniper had moved to a location that provided him with a clear shot at Sarah's position, and he fired just as she was beginning to move. The bullet passed so close to Sarah's head that she could feel the shock wave, but her quick movement had saved her life. Sarah's response was instantaneous and devastating. She had identified the third sniper's position from his muzzle flash and was able to return fire within seconds. Her final shot of the engagement eliminated the last member of the enemy sniper team, ending a threat that had plagued American forces for weeks. The successful completion of this mission established Sarah's reputation as one of the most effective snipers in the Marine Corps. She had eliminated 3 highly trained enemy snipers in a single engagement, demonstrating not only exceptional marksmanship, but also tactical intelligence and courage under the most dangerous conditions imaginable. Word of Sarah's incredible counter-sniper operation spread throughout the military chain of command like wildfire. Within 48 hours of her successful engagement, reports of her achievement had reached division headquarters and were being discussed at the highest levels of Marine Corps leadership. A single Marine had eliminated an entire enemy sniper team that had been terrorizing American forces for weeks. The valley that had been too dangerous for regular operations was now secure, and American convoys began moving through the area without fear of sniper attacks. The psychological impact on enemy forces was significant. Intelligence intercepts revealed that Taliban commanders were warning their fighters about an American sniper with extraordinary abilities who could eliminate targets at impossible distances. But Sarah's reputation would soon be tested in an even more challenging situation. 2 weeks after the counter-sniper operation, a massive Taliban offensive began across the entire region. Enemy forces launched coordinated attacks on multiple American outposts simultaneously, using tactics that suggested months of planning and preparation. Forward Operating Base. Chapman found itself surrounded by enemy forces and under constant attack. The base's defensive perimeter was being probed daily by enemy reconnaissance teams, and Taliban fighters were establishing firing positions on the surrounding mountains. American forces were taking casualties from enemy mortars, rocket-propelled grenades, and small arms fire. The situation was becoming desperate, and conventional defensive tactics weren't providing adequate protection for the Marines on the base. Lieutenant Colonel Wells made a decision that was both tactical and symbolic. She assigned Sarah to establish a continuous overwatch position that would cover the entire base perimeter. Sarah would be responsible for identifying and eliminating enemy threats before they could engage American forces. It was an enormous responsibility that would require her to remain alert and ready to fire at any moment, day or night. Sarah established her primary position on the base's highest observation tower, which provided 360-degree visibility of the surrounding terrain. She had backup positions prepared throughout the base, allowing her to move quickly if enemy forces attempted to target her location. Her rifle was equipped with the most advanced optics available, and she had access to real-time intelligence about enemy movements. The siege of Forward Operating Base Chapman lasted for 17 days, and during that time, Sarah's performance was nothing short of extraordinary. She maintained almost constant vigilance, taking brief rest periods only when other snipers could provide temporary coverage. Her accuracy and consistency during this period would become legendary among Marine snipers. On the first day of the siege, Sarah eliminated 12 enemy fighters who were attempting to establish firing positions within range of the base. Each shot was made at distances exceeding 600 yards, and several were taken under conditions that most snipers would consider impossible. She fired in high winds, during sandstorms, and in low-light conditions that severely limited visibility. Enemy forces quickly learned to fear the American sniper, who seemed to see everything and miss nothing. Taliban fighters began refusing assignments that would expose them to Sarah's field of fire. Intelligence reports indicated that enemy commanders were offering substantial rewards for information about the American sniper's location and patterns. By the 5th day of the siege, Sarah had eliminated 28 enemy fighters without missing a single shot. Each engagement required split-second decision-making and perfect execution under extreme pressure. She was protecting not just her fellow Marines, but also Afghan civilian workers and contractors who were trapped on the base during the fighting. The most challenging day came during the 2nd week of the siege, when enemy forces launched a major assault on the base's eastern perimeter. More than 100 Taliban fighters attacked simultaneously, using coordinated tactics that included mortars, rockets, and direct small arms fire. American forces were outnumbered and in danger of being overrun. From her position on the observation tower, Sarah could see the entire battle developing. Enemy fighters were advancing from multiple directions, and American defensive positions were taking heavy fire. Traditional defensive tactics were failing because the enemy had too many fighters attacking from too many positions. Simultaneously, Sarah made a decision that, demonstrated both tactical brilliance and incredible courage. Instead of trying to provide general support fire, she focused on identifying and eliminating enemy leaders and weapons specialists. By targeting the fighters who were directing the attack and operating heavy weapons, she could disrupt the enemy's coordination and reduce their effectiveness. For 6 hours, Sarah maintained continuous precision fire against enemy forces. She eliminated enemy commanders who were coordinating attacks, destroyed machine gun positions that were suppressing American forces, and targeted fighters who were carrying rocket-propelled grenades toward the base perimeter. Her shooting was so accurate and consistent that enemy forces began retreating from positions they had held throughout the siege. During this single engagement, Sarah successfully eliminated 34 enemy fighters, bringing her total for the siege to more than 60 confirmed eliminations. Every shot had been fired under combat conditions against moving targets at varying distances. Her accuracy rate remained perfect, with not a single shot missing its intended target. The psychological impact of Sarah's performance was devastating to enemy morale. Intelligence intercepts revealed that Taliban commanders were describing the American sniper as supernatural, someone who could kill at impossible distances and who never missed. Some enemy fighters were requesting transfers to other areas rather than face the American sniper. As the siege continued, Sarah's legend grew among both friendly and enemy forces. American Marines began referring to her as Ghost, a nickname that reflected her ability to eliminate enemies who thought they were safely concealed. Enemy forces developed elaborate procedures for movement and concealment specifically designed to avoid exposure to the American sniper they had learned to fear. The siege finally ended when American reinforcements arrived to break the enemy encirclement. During the final battle, Sarah provided overwatch for the relief forces, eliminating enemy fighters who attempted to ambush the incoming Marines. Her precision fire was crucial in allowing the reinforcements to reach the base and drive off the remaining enemy forces. When the fighting ended, Sarah's achievement was unprecedented in modern Marine Corps history. During the 17-day siege, she had successfully eliminated 97 enemy fighters without missing a single shot. Her performance had saved countless American lives and had played a crucial role in defending the base against overwhelming enemy forces. The number 97 became significant because it represented something that had never been achieved before in combat. No sniper in Marine Corps history had ever maintained perfect accuracy while engaging such a large number of targets under actual combat conditions. Sarah had demonstrated a level of skill and consistency that redefined what was considered possible for military snipers. But Sarah's most challenging moment was still ahead. As news of her achievement spread throughout the military, she would face a request that would test not just her shooting skills, but her character and judgment as a Marine and as a human being. 3 days after the siege ended, Sarah received an unexpected visitor at Forward Operating Base Chapman. Major General Robert Morrison, the commanding general of all Marine forces in Afghanistan, had flown in specifically to meet the sniper whose extraordinary performance was being discussed at the Pentagon. The general was a tall, distinguished man with silver hair and the bearing of someone who had spent 30 years leading Marines in combat. General Morrison met with Sarah privately in the base commander's office. He had read detailed reports of her achievements and had come to make a personal request that would push her abilities to their absolute limit. Intelligence sources had identified a high-value target whose elimination could significantly impact enemy operations throughout the region. The target was Khalil Rahman, a foreign fighter who had been training Taliban snipers and coordinating attacks against American forces. Rahman was responsible for the deaths of dozens of American soldiers and Marines, and his elimination had become a top priority for military leadership. However, the situation presented challenges that went beyond anything Sarah had faced before. Rahman was hiding in a compound located in a small village 15 miles from the base. The compound was surrounded by civilian buildings, and intelligence indicated that innocent families were living in the immediate area. Any operation to eliminate Rahman would need to be conducted with surgical precision to avoid civilian casualties. DC General explained that conventional military operations were not feasible because of the civilian presence and the compound's location in a densely populated area. Rahman was too valuable a target to ignore, But he was also too well protected for traditional assault tactics. A precision sniper shot was the only viable option. Sarah listened carefully as General Morrison described the mission parameters. The shot would need to be taken from an extreme distance to avoid detection and to minimize risk to civilians. Initial calculations suggested that the target would be approximately 400 yards away, a distance that pushed the boundaries of what was considered possible, even with the most advanced equipment. Environmental conditions would make the shot even more challenging. The village was located in a valley surrounded by mountains that created unpredictable wind patterns. Temperature variations between day and night were extreme, affecting bullet trajectory in ways that were difficult to calculate precisely. The shot would need to be taken during a narrow window of opportunity, when Rahman appeared at a specific location. General Morrison made it clear that this was a voluntary mission. Sarah could decline without any negative consequences to her career or reputation. However, if she accepted, she would be attempting something that had never been accomplished before in Marine Corps history. The combination of distance, environmental factors, and the critical importance of avoiding civilian casualties made it the ultimate test of sniper skills. Sarah asked for 12 hours to consider the mission and to study all available intelligence about the target and location. She spent the night reviewing satellite photographs, weather reports, and detailed maps of the area. She also consulted with other experienced snipers on the base, seeking their opinions about the feasibility of such an extreme long-range shot. The technical challenges were enormous. At 2,400 yards, Sarah's bullet would take nearly 2 seconds to reach the target, during which time wind, gravity, and atmospheric conditions would all affect its trajectory. The slightest miscalculation or environmental change could cause the bullet to miss by several feet, potentially hitting innocent civilians. Sarah also considered the moral implications of the mission. Rahman was undoubtedly responsible for American deaths and was a legitimate military target. However, the risk to civilians, though small, was real. As a Marine sniper, Sarah had been trained to accept responsibility for every shot she fired and to ensure that her actions protected innocent life. After careful consideration, Sarah decided to accept the mission. Her reasoning was both tactical and humanitarian. Rahman's continued operations were resulting in American casualties and were prolonging the conflict in ways that ultimately endangered more civilian lives. If she could eliminate him cleanly and safely, it would save lives on all sides. The mission required 2 days of preparation. Sarah worked with the base's meteorological team to develop detailed weather forecasts for the planned shooting time. She studied ballistics tables and computer models that predicted bullet trajectory under the expected conditions. Every variable that could affect the shot was analyzed and accounted for. Sarah also prepared psychologically for what would be the most important shot of her career. She practiced meditation techniques that helped her achieve the mental state necessary for extreme precision shooting. She reviewed every successful long-range shot she had made during her deployment, building confidence in her abilities while maintaining realistic expectations about the challenges ahead. The mission began before dawn on a clear morning with minimal wind. Sarah's team traveled to a concealed position on a mountainside overlooking the target village. They established their firing position 3 hours before the expected opportunity, allowing time for final preparations and environmental observations. As the morning progressed, Sarah made continuous adjustments to her calculations based on real-time weather observations. Wind speed and direction varied throughout the morning, requiring constant recalculation of bullet trajectory. The target area remained under observation, with intelligence teams confirming that Rahman was in the compound and would likely appear at the expected time and location. At 11:30 a.m., Rahman appeared exactly where intelligence had predicted. Through her high-powered scope, Sarah could see him clearly despite the extreme distance. He was standing in a courtyard area of the compound, separated from civilian areas by concrete walls that would stop any bullet that missed its target. Sarah had only minutes to take the shot before Rahman would return to the safety of the building. She made final calculations based on current wind conditions and settled into her firing position. Everything she had learned during months of training and combat experience came together in this single moment. The shot Sarah fired that day became legendary in Marine Corps history. Despite the extreme distance and challenging conditions, her bullet struck Rahman precisely where she had aimed. The target was eliminated instantly, and there were no civilian casualties. Intelligence teams later confirmed that Rahman's death significantly disrupted enemy operations throughout the region. Sarah's achievement represented the perfect culmination of skill, training, and judgment under the most demanding conditions possible. She had made 100 successful shots during her deployment, each one contributing to the protection of American forces and innocent civilians. Her accuracy record remained perfect, with not a single shot missing its intended target. The story of Marine sniper Sarah Chen became an inspiration to future generations of military snipers and a testament to what could be achieved through dedication, training, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Her deployment ended 2 months later, but her legacy continued to influence Marine Corps sniper training and tactics for years to come. When Sarah returned home to Montana, she carried with her the knowledge that she had served her country with distinction and had saved countless lives through her extraordinary skills and judgment. She had proven that with proper training, dedication, and courage, it was possible to achieve what others considered impossible. Her story became a reminder that excellence in military service comes not just from individual skill, but from the commitment to use that skill in service of something greater than oneself.